What's up, muchachas? And welcome back to Books and Good Looks. And I just came from my 4.7 mile run. It was a vibe. We didn't hit five today because I haven't ran in weeks. And I do believe that with athleticism, it's just one of those things to where if you really train for it and like you're consistent in like past times, it never really leaves you because I can easily do 4 miles. I could have did the five, but I just was like at my car and the route that I took today, I was over it. But I do kind of feel like it's one of those things that just happens to stay with you. Like I won't say that like if you never strengthen and like use it that you you will probably always be able to run 4 miles. Like obviously if it's been like years, probably not. But I'm very grateful. So I wanted to come on and say that. And I wanted to kind of share with you guys the books that I was currently reading, some books that I just picked up, and some of the research that I'm going to be doing. Now, I'm going to touch briefly on the research aspect because I just got to this point where I realized that if I have this tendency, if I tell people what I'm researching for whatever reason, I don't research it. And I think it's because in my mind it's already done versus if I'm already doing it and I share it with somebody, then it's like, okay, this is still happening. Like this is more so current versus like possible. Like I don't know. Like I feel like whenever I share something prematurely, it doesn't get done. And I don't think it's like people are hating on me. I'm not sending out that vibe. I don't really have that mindset. Like I don't think people are hating on me or preying on my downfall. I just think it's like I'm telling myself that like it's already done. And so because it didn't happen, the excitement has gone away. And so yeah, I feel like that's just something that I do. But anyway, I need to get some bookmarks. So please don't judge me for all the pins and all the other things that just so happen to be in my books at this time. So I'm reading The Coddling of the American Mind. And I want to kind of start off by saying what really sparked me to do research in regards to the American mind. As you can see, this book is kind of prefacing on college graduates. But what really made me kind of look into this and start to kind of explore the nuances of college education is I was actually considering going back to school. I've teetered with this decision for a very long time. I've been back and forth on the defense. I'm like, here's my philosophy. So, one, I knew I was going to get married. I knew I was going to get married. And I was like, okay, are we going to go back to school to get this college degree to have some type of stability and security within our lives before we mesh with someone else? I wanted to be someone who was really full before I got married. The second thing was I knew that I was an entrepreneur. I didn't go to college initially because neither one of my parents went to college. And though it may be noble to be like a first gen graduate or whatever, for me, it was just more so like kids really do what you do. So if you don't go to college, they're probably not going to go to college. So I wanted to go to college for my daughter, my unborn child. Yes, I've thought about her. Yes, I have. And so I was like, I want to go to college to get this degree. And so it took a while for me to kind of really sit with that because I've struggled with college, not because it's hard, but because college has been like the biggest time waster as I get older. I just realized I just don't have the time. Even when I was in school, a lot of people say things like, oh, you can go to college and work a full-time job. To be honest, I think that these are people who have never really worked a full-time job. I think these are people who worked at like the yoga shop for like 3 days a week. And they didn't really have any major bills. They were like living at home. Like the circumstances were just a lot different around this conversation whenever I talk to people who did not go to college and who were in college and say that they worked a full-time job. I just don't think that's true. I really don't. But because like the time and the pressure, it's not possible. Let's just say for example, your work schedule is 7 to 3. It's going to take you forever to graduate because your classes are not going to be after 3. Most commonly, they're going to be at 9. And let's say you work from 3 to 12. That's great. You have time to go to college because for the most part, most of your classes are going to be in the day. However, 3 to 12 is crazy. And while you're at work, most jobs, all jobs actually require you to be present and to put in some level of productivity. So your idea of like studying, it's non-existent. And depending on what you study, yeah, it's not happening. So I think a lot of times the conversations around like college and things like that, and working, like it's just not true. So anyway, for me in my journey, I just didn't really have time to go to college. I just didn't. Like I did it for like 6 years, dropped out quite a few times. At this point I stopped counting. And it's really just because I was just not challenged. As I went back like 20, I think I went back to college in like 2022, maybe 2023. I just finished a semester like less than a year ago. I realized that I wasn't challenged. I realized that my philosophies and all of the independent study that I have put in on myself, hello, you see the bookshelf, and this is just one. There are several. There are several. I love knowledge. Like I love learning, and I just really felt like college had a way of really siloing that out, and I just felt completely disregarded and invalidated in my philosophies, in my critical theories. However, my one journalism professor did appreciate that. He actually emailed me. This is a bit of a flex. He did email me and asked that I would join his political science class because he felt as though my critical analysis really inspired the other students in the class. hmm Yes. Can we get a round of applause? Can we get a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, we start breaking down prices because the thing about college is like when you're 18, you don't really care about the money. Like you don't really care. You're not really like, oh my God, I have to pay for this. Oh my God, this is so expensive. Like you don't really care. You don't care because you're not paying for it. In your mind, this is free. In your mind, it's giving girl math. Like this is free. Like I don't really care. But then when you become a woman, you become an adult and you're like paying bills and you have to keep the lights on and all those things, you definitely care. Oh, it's gonna matter. It's gonna matter. And you realize that like you start looking up and you're like, man, I'm probably not gonna have this prestige, but I do have my dignity. And one thing that really sparked me to go to college was social validation. I wanted social capital. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I wanted social capital. I wanted to be validated in going to college. Hello. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it was one of those things where it was like, no, I want to be validated in this experience. I want to feel like I've done something great in the world. I want to feel worthy of the things that I was desiring because I was coming across so many people who had went to college and I did not go to college. So I was like, oh my God, like I'm in these rooms with all of these college graduates and I did not go to college. I feel like an imposter. And essentially I was because to me, it was like I didn't do the work. But that's the thing. People don't see the back end work. So that's why I created my YouTube channel, Books and Good Looks, because I love fashion. I am a bit of a name brand athletic person. I'm big on Nike. I've always loved Nike. Like even when I played soccer in high school, I talk about that a lot, I know. But trust me, I am not one of those pastimes, okay? Like you're not going to hear about all of my glory days. You might, but I feel like when I played soccer, I loved it. Like I just love Nike. Like yeah. So anyway, back to the books. That was a long-winded intro, but I want to talk about this book, The Calling of the American Mind. And I'm only on page 45. And the reason why it's so important for me to have dialogue, whether it's my podcast, Fifth Edition, which is in my bio, check it out, or if it's my YouTube channel, Books and Good Looks, because I have to retain the information. We retain information by actually teaching and sharing what it is that we've learned. And I really like to dissect as I read because it just helps me get into that. This is one read. We're not going to probably get too much into this one because I actually didn't crack this one open today. So far, it really prefaces off of how we are very sensitive and how essentially we're coddled and how college doesn't really create the opportunities for individual theory because a lot of people are coddled and a lot of people are fragile. And one thing I will say that I want to kind of share, and I think that this really took from this, and this is something I've kind of learned on my own time and just kind of like being in different spaces, being aware of the cultural movement of multiculturalism, of inclusivity, of diversity, is I just kind of started to realize that like not everybody is doing something offensive. And that's pretty much what this book is preferencing on. Like this first chapter, I think I'm on the second chapter, this second chapter that I'm reading. And it just kind of talks about how a lot of times we don't give people the benefit of the doubt and how we're really, really quick to be infuriated when someone disagrees with us. And we don't really have that healthy conflict. I think because ideas, and you know how you hear, in like Indian philosophies, see, you see what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? It's probably not Indian philosophies. And I would definitely say more so like spiritual philosophies that you are not your thoughts. And I guess I said Indian philosophies because when we hear about like Buddhism, and we hear about, you know, meditation and things like that, a lot of times it is spiritual in that sense. And I guess that was my reference. So, again, this is the whole preface of the video and the book that I'm reading. So, I'm sorry if I offended someone. And so, yeah, and he talks about intention, right? And he talks about how a lot of times we get super offended, but we don't sit with the intention of a person's words. Like, did I say that with this intention that was hurtful, or did I say that just blanket statement, didn't know any better, didn't mean to offend anyone, genuinely seeking understanding? So when that happens, and this was a perfect example, there's correction, but correction can be done in a very kind way. It doesn't have to be extremely harsh and curt. And he talks about how when we do that, when we show up and we correct others with such harshness, with such scrutiny, they're less likely to engage in another conversation or with the group of people that they may have offended, because they are just like stereotyped in this very negative way, the people that corrected the person. And I thought that was very powerful. And is that not the culture that we're living in today? So I'm really hoping by the time I finish this book, The Calling of the American Mind, I would hope to be able to take something from that in terms of interacting with other people. And maybe from this one chapter, because the subtext is how good intentions and bad ideas are setting a generation up for failure. So, yeah, I'm going to end there with this one. Now, the second book that I'm reading, super good, super revolutionary, is Mother Daughter. And this book's, cut the clip. Cut the clip. Cut the clip. So this book is Mother Hunger, and it's how adult daughters can understand and heal from lost nurturance, protection, and guidance. Now, this is super big for me. As I understand myself, I think that it makes me a better mentor. I think it makes me a better person in every aspect of my life, whether that's a friend, whether that's a daughter, whether that's, you know what I mean? But this book is really important. And it just talks, right now I'm reading about attachment styles. I'm probably going to end the video here shortly because I actually want to get back to reading and I need to eat some lunch. But it talks about attachment styles, and it talks about how this is a thing, and it's a huge epidemic. And I really think the reason why I'm kind of falling short in regards to my words is because I haven't finished a book. Again, page 41, I have to read both books simultaneously, because what you don't see is that there's a whole other pile of books over here for my next thing that I'm into, and I'm super stoked because they had these books in my library. So yeah, but really really great book. And I think even though the book prefaces on daughters and mother relationships, which I think is so understudied and understated, a lot of what she's talking about in terms of our attachment styles is something that I actually can apply to a lot of the men that I've dated and a lot of the people that I've come into interactions with, and how they show up and how it just really makes a lot of sense. But I think one thing that I can definitely take from this book, and that I'm going to leave here with you guys, is that she says attachment styles and attachment theory is simply based for research purposes in regards to human behavior. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. But these theories and the context, right, in regards to attachment theories was never meant to label us, just for research purposes only. So I thought that that was really profound, because we kind of sit in this society today where it's like everyone feels as though we have to, like, oh my God, I have an attachment style theory, and we solely identify with this, right? She also said that our attachment style changes depending on the relationship that we're in. A lot of times, as women, especially, even as I'm doing the work, a lot of times as women especially, we are taught that there is something wrong with us. We are taught that we need to go back and we need to heal, we need to fix, we need to correct, we need to course correct, we need to do all these different things. And very seldom are we really encouraged to just kind of like be. And so I think for women, we really overdo it in terms of the internalization and the introspect, that we don't realize that, babe, a relationship takes two. Okay, you can't go outside with one shoe. Okay, it takes two to tango. You ever tried to salsa by yourself? Girl, it's hard. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I think sometimes as women, we take on a little too much. And so I would like to end this video by encouraging you ladies, okay, so just kind of take a step back and just realize that, like, it takes two to tango. And if you took nothing else from this video, just know that your attachment style, it changes based on the relationship that you're in. And Yeah. So subscribe to the channel. Check out the podcast. I literally just do this all day. Philosophy. I read books. I love sharing. I love teaching. Am I gonna go back to college? I don't know. It's still up and it's stuck. I've definitely seen some benefits to college given my small town. But if I gotta be honest, on the back end, I really haven't put in the work socially, like social media wise, to really see an outcome in my investments. You know what I mean? Like out see if like content creation can really afford me a certain type of lifestyle. But I'm also very traditional. So this is, these are my problems. These are things that I need to deal with. But if you're in this space, girl, I see you. Let me know what you decide to do in the comments below. Subscribe. We'll talk later. Bye.